amazing women leaders here on campus. And it also could help you discover your purpose and pursuing your careers and strengthen your connection with your meta major. I do want to reiterate that this is a 3-day speaker series, and this is day 2, and we'll be focusing on arts, language, communication meta major, and society and education meta major. So in the Padlet on the chat, that's where you can find great meta major resources, from meeting your meta major counselors to meta major peer peer help, and you could just really utilize that on your own time if needed. So without further ado, I do want to introduce our amazing panelists, starting off with Rika Fabian, who is a sociology professor here at Skyline College and has a PhD in sociology. Rika arrived in the States when she was 23 for her graduate studies because she did not see a future in Japan due to the persistent patriarchy there. She teaches sociology of sex and gender, advises Saga, and works with students and faculty on gender, queer oppression in many venues. Her axiom is, I am so sorry, is theory is cool, but theory without practice ain't shit. So yes, go Rika. I'm really happy to see you here. Next we have Pia Walawakar, who is an associate professor and outreach equity librarian at Skyline College. She has an MA in English literature and German studies, also a master's of library and information science. She teaches critical information literacy and research methods and implements social justice centered programming in the Skyline College Library. She also leads the Skyline College Human Library Project that is part of the International Human Library movement, and she actively is involved in supporting girls and young women's education role in India. So hello, nice to see you again. Last but not least, we do have Dr. Liza Erpelo, who is an English professor and coordinator for the Kababayan Learning Center here at Skyline College. She has an EDD in Educational Leadership, MA in Composition, MA in Literature, and BA in English Literary Theory. Liza began teaching at SFSU in 2000 and joined Skyline College in 2002. A proud self-proclaimed U.S. Navy brat, Liza was born in Hawaii and also lived in Alaska and Rhode Island. She now lives in San Francisco with her husband and 2 daughters, and also is a UJAM fitness instructor. So hello. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. Before I start off with the questions, I do want to say that I feel very honored to be here, especially as a Skyline student for about 3 years. You all really inspired me as a student. Even if I haven't taken your class, I do see you around. I hear a lot of things about you. Shout out to Rika. You really changed my life ever since I took your class. So really happy to see you. And yeah, you all inspire me in so many ways. With that being said, my first question would be, who or what inspires you to pursue your career in this meta major? And Liza, I do want to start off with you. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jaseryll. Okay, thank you all for coming today. This is awesome. Yes, please, if you have questions as we're talking, throw them in the chat. I love interacting in the chat as we go, and I'm a talker, so you may want to cut me when you need to. But I was thinking about this question, and it's interesting because when I think about having been an English major, I can count maybe on one hand how many Filipino English majors that I knew growing up, basically, and I was not expected to go into the field that I'm going into. In fact, I was asked my parents asked me, are you going to become a doctor, a nurse, or a lawyer? And those were my choices, right? And then it was when I was in high school, and I didn't realize that I could write. I mean, I knew I could spell. I won a couple of spelling bees in elementary school and everything, but I was developing writing skills. And it was a teacher. She was my sophomore English teacher, and she had told me, she was like, "Hey, have you considered taking classes at a community college?" And this was like 14, 15-year-old me. This is before middle college was even a thing. And she was telling me that my writing was like, you should be at a college. And of course, my parents wouldn't let me do it. But that for me was the point where I'm like, hey, maybe I can do something with this writing thing. And I actually started taking journalism classes at not Scotland, when I was at Morse High School in San Diego. And I pursued that. I almost went into journalism. And so, but when I got to San Diego State, I didn't declare my major. And I purposely didn't declare my major because I didn't want my parents to find out that I wanted to be an English major. In fact, they had asked me, "Did you apply to the UCs? They expect me to go to UC San Diego to become a nurse." And I'm like, "No, no, I didn't hear from UC." Because I never applied was the was the thing. And so my first 2 years, I went in undeclared at San Diego State, but I took all the classes I needed to take. So I had to figure this whole thing out on my own. I had to figure out, I'm the first one in my family to go to college in the United States. Both my parents went to college in the Philippines, and I couldn't ask them, fill out a FAFSA, or how do you sign up for classes. I had to figure all that out, and I had to do that kind of almost secretly. And it wasn't until I was maybe almost a junior, and oh no, not even that. Right before I graduated, and I was doing my announcements, and my mom was asking me, like, "So you're an English major? I thought you were a Spanish major." And I'm like, "All right, never mind that I was living at home the entire time. I don't know what they were thinking." So, um, if anything, I mean, it was the teachers primarily, and I had, throughout high school and even as through college, San Diego State, I had a lot of teachers who really inspired me to pursue this, to keep writing, to keep going, all the way through, even through my master's program all the way here. That's actually how I ended up in San Francisco. Was that I came to San Francisco State specifically because I found out I can create my own major. I'm like, wait, I can study Filipino American literature and write about it. Oh, like, sign me up, put me on a plane. That's how I ended up here in '97, and I've kind of taken it from there. So yeah, it was my teachers. I mean, not to say that my parents were influenced. My parents, if anything, taught me that if I wanted something to go for it, I didn't go for what they wanted, but I went for what I wanted to do, and that's how I ended up here today. So, yeah, definitely, it was my all the folks who my mentors and my teachers, but that one English teacher who said, "Hey, you're actually pretty good for a sophomore," and I'm like, "All right," and that's what kind of pushed me to go forward. So,
Thank you for that. That's so inspiring to hear. I think I could really relate to you, from being Filipino, from my parents wanting me to be in the nursing field. Um, but I do want to say, like, even though you were inspired by your teachers, now you're that teacher that inspires others. And I'm just so happy that you pursued everything. And yeah, I just hear so much about you, Liza. So I really know your impact here, like from SF State and Skyline. So thank you for sharing. If anyone else wants to chime into that question, like who or what inspires you, please go ahead.
It's us? Oh, wait. So what inspired me? So actually, I teach sociology. Hi, my name is Rika. I'm so happy to be here with my sisters here. I was a Spanish linguistics major in Japan. And right, no one can guess it. I still read and then speak to the lesser extent. And all the music I used to listen to in college was all border music, or Chicano band from LA. That was my favorite genre. And then I was going to just pursue it. Then one day I went to a college bookstore. I'm talking about the time when I was in Japan still, right? I picked up this book that's by randomly. It's called Sociology of Education. And it totally destroyed my world. Wow, I thought the education is for upward mobility and it's great place where everybody can learn knowledge from. And then the book said it's pretty much education is an institution to reproduce the social hierarchy, like damn, like that's a new story. My parents never told me about it, right? My parents like a totally like there's another name for meritocracy. Like if you study hard, you're gonna get there. There's a whole myth that Japanese people believe in. So that I still have that book. It's a 30 years old book, but I still have it because that is what changed my world. And that's where I am at now. Pia, do you want to go ahead and share your story?
So firstly, thank you for organizing this, and I'm very happy to share the platform with Rika and Liza. Very honored. I would say, firstly, I am faculty librarian, so I don't fall in one meta major. I feel like I belong to all. And I think that my mishmash of the experiences that I've had with the personal, educational, and work kind of prepared me for that, where I help STEM and English, language arts, and sociology. And I can talk about what inspired me, like what was the inspiration for those experiences. I have to go back when I was maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. And I would say that, I grew up in kind of a traditional, conservative, Hindu, Indian household in the suburbs of Mumbai. And I felt, and then life's changed. It's a long time ago, and no offense to my parents, I love them and relatives. But I did feel very limited in what I could be as a little girl. There was discrimination right in my home. My brother's education was more important than mine. He got better treatment than I did. I could not swim. I could not ride a bike. And I felt very limited in what I was allowed to be, but I felt there is this inner need to be something else. And so actually, and that time there was no social media. So books were my place to go to. And there were escape, yes, but I think there were possibilities of a different life. And so, I started reading, and then I started first reading in my mother tongue, then English, and then translations of works from different parts of the world in English. And then like, okay, I'm going to do my bachelor's and master's in English literature. And then I started learning languages. And when I did my master's in German literature, came to the US again, more of a reason to kind of get away from that patriarchy, just like Rika was talking about, right? Or you mentioned in the bio. I think like my whole thing was I just did what I was, drawn towards, and really something that allowed me to explore the different aspects of who I am, what makes me me. And I felt like when I was in India, and even now when I travel, I feel like there are some things I just have to quell. And my whole thing has been, and I think the career, I've worked in many different places. I've been in the academic setting the last 7 years, but before that I was in academic publishing at Stanford. Before that I was in tech support in Google. And it has taken me so many different places. But I really think that career has been a byproduct of me just following what called me, and really like just exploring different aspects of me.
Thank you for all of your answers. That's so inspiring to hear. And I really, really, really respect all of you, especially because like my parents doesn't want me to be in the music industry as well. But like, as what Pia said, like that's my calling, that's why I'm pursuing it. So hearing those stories from you and like seeing you all so successful is very, very, very relieving to see. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy to hear that. We did talk about this kind of earlier, like what are some challenges you've overcome throughout your career? So Rika, please yeah, please answer. Thank you.
Got it, Jaseryll. So like Jaseryll described in my introduction part, I came to this country when I was 23. And because my mother language is Japanese, of course, during the whole graduate school and existing speaking a second language, and then being in this bicultural, bilingual world has been always a challenge, right? And not only the language barrier, just being a immigrant woman who's Asian, who's speaking in second language, which is not entirely mine. When I really have to speak, it has to be my mother language still. So this constant verbal linguistic struggle, and also like being this is why this way, my new background, being moral minority, being a woman, people see us as submissive and quiet, but what we are really feeling is that we do not matter. So we just go along with what other people's opinion, the desires are. And being in that internalized struggle and oppression, plus I never had the role model of a woman in a leadership position who is Asian, who looked like me, really. So this means that, I do lots of community organizing. I am an organizer of contract action team of the faculty union. I do lots of LGBTQ advocacy work. And coming up with your own image of this is what the leader should look like, who looks like me, who speaks like me without any model at all, that has been extremely hard. It's very hard to create something that you have never seen, right? That's why it's very hard to practice gender equality at home, because we have never seen that kind of thing before in our lives. So, and then come to think of it, when I started taking on all the leadership role on campus, it was always my friends who are Asian American women who supported me. They're the only ones who say, oh, you led the meeting very well today. You have very good leadership skills. No one else told me but my Asian American sisters. And then they're all gone, actually. Like Serena Maras-Chu from ESOL, she has been super supportive, and without their support, I'd never be able to keep doing this, just because I was literally walking in the dark. Like, what does it look like? Because I can't project myself in anything that I've never seen before. So I feel like just having this platform to talk to like Liza, Pia, and other colleagues of ours who I really respect, I hope it's doing something good to our female students, who particularly the Asian female students. So yeah, that is it for me. Thank you so much, Jaseryll.
It's definitely doing a big part, like especially as an Asian American, like being here. I think it's very important to understand that, like, even though back then you didn't have that role, like now we do. So I'm really happy to be here. I always say that, but like I'm just so happy that I'm talking to you, Rika, and all of you. But if anyone else wants to chime in for the what are your challenges that you've overcome throughout your career, please do so.
All right, I'll jump in on this because this was actually, excuse me, my allergies are going nuts. That's one of my challenges right now. But we were just talking about this right before the chat room opened, and Rika and I were having this conversation about, using the term doctor, right? She has a PhD and I have an EDD, right? And we're trying to get Pia up on this bandwagon too. So I'm working on her. But Rika was talking. I mean, okay, I'm gonna have you on mic and dialogue with me, Rika. Why before I told you my reason why did you not want to put your PhD on there?
I did not want to put it as if it's setting me aside, like away from other people with my title. That's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so I was listening to her and I was like, and she was asking me, why? And for me, putting the doctor in front of my name was actually, I think, more, if anything, an homage to a very dear friend of mine passed away a few years ago, Dr. Don Boholanu Mabalan. And I remember Don was one of the folks who actually inspired me to actually pursue an educational doctorate. And I remember her telling me, like, we need more Panay doctors. We need more doctoras up in there. And when you get it, you need to wear it. You earned it, right? And when I think back, and they heard this earlier, it's like when I think back about how I went through the process of going into the program, applying for it, interviewing, doing the work. And this is the preview, Pia. Basically, if you end up doing this, it was 3 years of going to school every other weekend throughout this year round for 3 years, and writing and doing this while raising a family, while teaching, having my career. And the last year, while in a pandemic, I had to defend my dissertation in the middle of all that. So and so now I probably and even coming back to teaching in this past fall, I didn't put doctor in front of my name. I didn't start putting that till this semester, because one, I worked hard for it, and two, I want to show other folks, especially other young Asian American women who are coming up, that they can put these letters in front of their name, or in Rika's case, behind their name as well. And so that's why I do it, because the biggest challenge for me was honestly owning it and saying that I did all of this work. I mean, I have been the coordinator for the Kababayan Learning Community since 2003, but it wasn't until last year where I actually could say that. Like, I worked really hard to do that, and I have this dissertation, this 200-page document to show that. But it took literally 17 years for me to say that. So that I think is the biggest struggle, biggest challenge that I have. And I'm trying to show that, and I'm trying to own that. But I think because like what Rika was saying, when we talk about model minority, we're not supposed to brag. We're not supposed to like be proud of this, right? But you know what? I put in the work, I put in the money, I put in the time, I put in the effort, blood, sweat, and tears. So I'm gonna totally own that. All right. Pia, to you.
I will kind of borrow something from both of them. I think that my struggle, and I wouldn't say I've overcome it. I think I'm overcoming it, and maybe I will have to overcome it most of my life. But I think it is, as I said some time back, growing up, I did not feel at home that I had a voice. And sometimes even now when I go to India, I don't have a voice or I struggle with it. But I think that because of that, and generally I'm also a more introverted person. So there's nature, nurture, both going against me. And I'm in a culture which expects me to pat my back and be, almost kind of aggressive and assertive. And it's just not something that's natural to me. And I wasn't raised that way. I didn't so my mother, she was at a very high post at the state government, or her signature could, could have consequences to a company, but at home, she did not have power. I saw her quietly working in the kitchen. And that's the lives that I saw. And so it has been, it is even now, but I think I'm getting over it, at the time I'm overcoming that, is that knowing that I'm enough, knowing that my voice is important, that my ideas are worth sharing, that they have value. So I think that has been my struggle, being a woman, being raised in a kind of a more patriarchal. I think patriarchy is everywhere, but more patriarchal society than the society we live in. And so that has and what you were saying, Liza, about being humble, which is often seen as being diffident in the West. And so it's like, how do I stay true to who I am and what I am, and then still succeed in a culture that expects me to be different? Like some of the things that are considered to be good here are actually considered to be not good in my culture. And to kind of balance that and stay true to myself and still do well has I would say has been a struggle, and I'm overcoming it. I am on my path, and but I'm not in any way, I would not say it's done. It's work continues.
Thank you. I find it really interesting that, like you said, overcoming. I think that just sheds like a light to how it's a process, and it doesn't matter if you've overcome it or if you haven't, it's just the way of life, and the fact that you are pushing through it is very important. Also, I really like what you guys mentioned about model minority. Personally, when I was in middle college, I tend to write a lot about, write my history papers about model minority, and like no one really knew what that meant. But then I'm really happy that like we're shedding light on that now. So I really appreciate hearing your answers. I'm going to move on to the next question for Pia. How have you changed by being part of this profession and major?
Okay. As I was just saying, right, like one of my things was owning my voice, or like feeling. So I think I'm getting better at it, and I lead projects, and I think like accepting to participate in something like this. I would not have done that 2-3 years ago. Of course I would be there to ask questions or attend panel, but not think that, oh, I have something of value that somebody else can, learn. I think even that is, for me, I feel like that's changed me and made me more open and willing to share. But I will also say, I think it's my role, as I was saying, I work with different meta majors, so therefore different students, different subjects, different age groups, different faculty members. And I think that's made me more open, more flexible, I would and just working with students, because I don't just see the 20 students in one class or something. I see so many different students from so many different classes, and I think that hearing their stories of courage, of strength. I mean, so many of our students. I think like I get inspired by our students. Um, they are. Some of the things that I had struggles, but I hadn't struggled with hunger or housing insecurity or things like that. And I hear stories of resilience and courage and strength, and that's just made me so much more, I think, I don't know, just more grateful, more grounded, just more more compassionate. And I think that the more I hear, the less judgmental I become, the more I'm very conscious of my inner voice, of what I'm saying and what I'm thinking about people, and stopping it right there. So I think those are the changes I've seen in myself since I've been in this role.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I do want to say that being in Skyline is such like a good place to feel resilient and just like to really learn about yourself because of our welcoming community. And as a student, I feel that way as well. I feel like this campus really gives us a voice to speak out, and there's always a platform for everyone, especially you, Pia. So I'm really happy to hear that from you. If anyone else wants to chime in for that question, how have you changed being part of this profession or major? Please go.
We're doing this. You go. No, you go. No, you go. Right. Here's being the professional. We're all teachers. We're professors. We're educators. And to me, I think it is an amazing job. I don't even call it a job, because we get to learn all the time, like literally. We have the pleasure of working with a student for one semester. We have 4 semesters, 5 semesters, 6 semesters, right? And I can safely say this. I mean, I've been now. I am in my 21st year of teaching. So that means I started teaching when I was like 5 years old, right? No, but but I've been teaching for 21 years now. This is my 21st year, and every time I come out of a class, I always say when we finish it up, I always thank my students for teaching me, because I learn as much from them as they learn from me. And there's that saying that a teacher is only as good as his or her students are. And I firmly believe that. And I think that's one of the I think I'm always changing. I'm always learning. I'm always like, I could teach the same book 3 semesters in a row, and just something different every single time. I get something different out of it. And so I have like notes on notes on notes in my books, because from what I learned from my students. It's pretty amazing. And so that's like my hashtag, right? Hashtag always a student. And I think the minute that we stop learning is the minute that we stop growing. And then for me, if I want to call myself an educator, an educational leader, community leader, I got to keep learning. I got to keep growing. So I love that. And so I feel like right now, even just at this very moment as we're doing this conversation, like I've known Rika and Pia, I'm learning so many things about them right now, and it's just blowing my mind. I'm like, wait, I'm already thinking of ways that we can already kind of work together. So even things like, oh, I want to put you three on a panel together. I'm right now, this is changing the way that I'm thinking, the way that I'm learning. And so I think every opportunity like this that we get is another chance to grow.
I totally agree with both of my friends, colleagues, sisters here that students really, this is the best job ever. I would never give it up for any other job, literally, besides for maybe preschool teaching. I would want to do that too, right? It's hard to compete that job. Well, so yesterday I had a really good class, so sociology of sex and gender, and I wanted to really share about what happened in Georgia last week, just because it's gender, race, intersection, besides the whole academic reasons. It was something that really impacted me deeply, and it hurt me so deeply, not only me, but everybody in our community. And then I did something I've never done before, really like going with the flow and then creating the moment of sharing, which I was so afraid of doing right out of PhD program. That kind of emotions and a sharing space that was not respected at all in my PhD program at UC San Diego. That's your weakness. That means that you are not intellectually supple. Don't ever do that. And it really took me 10 years to start doing this kind of practice, just because I've never seen that before, one, and they never teach you how to teach in graduate school. So that's something you have to teach yourself, right? That's kind of ridiculous. And then three, that's because the students are so supportive. They would be willing to just support me, because I started breaking down, in fact, when I was talking. And then they all saying like, I really respect your vulnerability. We are here to support you. So that is like how I learned to be more humane in the classroom. I would never be able to learn without my students.
Wow. I'm very like speechless. Just because it's really meaningful to hear that as a student. Like to hear how much you value us is very important, especially like during the pandemic. We feel like a slight disconnect from our professor, from our class. So just hearing you all really value us and like how you learn from us is just very inspiring, and it makes us want to learn more, you know? So thank you for caring about us. You guys are amazing. Um, so this is kind of like a freestyle type of question. Anyone can anyone can answer. It's kind of similar to the one earlier, but how do you wish to make a difference on our campus in general?
Can I be super ambitious? I want to end gender oppression on this campus. Seriously, we don't talk about this, right? And I've seen so many things, I've heard so many things from my female identifying colleagues and the students. And I don't know what this silence is about. We all know why this silence is about, right? We all know that here. We can analyze it to this, but we don't have that in practice. My axiom is theory without practice ain't shit. So that's what I want to do. And then we are trying to create some space, like through my union law, maybe through intercultural center. And I would like to do this maybe through ASSC again. I really appreciate that this is safe space, safe zone that we can share without repercussions, without being self-conscious, and just being who I am, Asian American woman with an immigrant. So I share my ambition. So why don't you too share your ambition too?
All right, actually, what I would want to do actually goes beyond Skyline, because of the work that we have been doing at Skyline, specifically working with Filipino Americans, so Filipinx students, right? The reason why I have been doing the work with Kababayan for so long, I was asked to do it in 2003, and I was asked, do you want to start the Kababayan program? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, what is it? And like literally, we're just building it like class by class. Like literally, I'm 1 week ahead of them, right? And so, especially after having taken the time last year to write my dissertation and to like really look at the work that we've been doing at Skyline and how have we gotten these students who were told you're not good enough for college, why didn't you join the military, you should be staying at home doing this, you shouldn't be a humanities major, why aren't you going to nursing? They're told all of these things, right? Or you need to go to college so that we can stay on our insurance for no other reason why, right? So, or why don't you just join the military? To see these students become cultural ambassadors, to see them opening up their own restaurants, their own, creating their own businesses, to, broadcasters, becoming teachers, becoming counselors, coming back to Skyline to help out. I mean, that's kind of what I see, like what Kababayan has done. And I love what it's doing for Skyline. I want to see that statewide. I want to see that kind of support for our Filipinx students, right, in throughout the state. And that's one of the things that we've been working on. And Alvin is actually one of the folks as we're trying to get all of the Filipinx educators, male and female, but yes, especially the women, because a lot of us that we were told to be nurses, right? And here we are, we're leading the charge on how do we bring equity and social justice to our campuses? How do we get our voices heard? Like kind of what Rika, but both Rika and Pia, how do we have a voice, right? And when you think about not just Filipinx Americans, but also Asian Americans, we are the large. I don't even know why we're even a minority. We are the majority in this country. So why aren't we in these places, of power, right? Why aren't we leading the charge that way? So I don't know. I want to see. I love Skyline. I love working. There's a reason why I've been at Skyline for since 2002. It's an amazing campus and it allows us to grow. It allows us to do these things. but we need to see this go all the way. You know, whether it's my work with Kababayan, whether it's bringing like gender and equity studies to the forefront, right? Um, I just want to see it kind of keep growing, keep getting bigger, and I also want to see someone get ready to take over what I'm doing now. Like I always tell my students, I'm like, this is great and all, but I want to see one of you in front of the classroom someday. You know, so that's what I want to see. Yeah.
So in addition to teaching research methods or information literacy, or there are many names for that, what I did at Skyline was started implementing social justice centered events in the library. And that's kind of not typical of academic libraries. And the reason I did that was because I felt like I wanted to transform the library spaces into learning environments that were not tied to a course or a syllabus or grades or a major. So a math person can come and witness the reading of Banned Books Week or vice versa, right? And I think I want to continue doing that. I would like to, because another thing is I wanted students to have some kind of a shared experience, even if though they are in different meta majors, this was a common or shared experience they could have. And also, again, even though I implement and plan them, I've often made them to be, student-centered. Students, it's their space, and I want them to own that and kind of. So I want to continue doing that. The other thing, I mean, continuing with what I'm doing, I feel like we have on our campus people who do really great, amazing work around social justice. And they're very committed, equity and social justice. And then we have people who are doing sustainability, and they're doing really good work. And somehow they're not overlapping. But I feel we can create a perfectly just world for a little girl, but if the earth is inhabitable, it's not going to help us. Also, I feel social justice and ecological justice is social justice, right? Which neighborhoods, are where we feel okay to dump toxic waste, which countries we ship our waste, our trash. Whose water we steal, who's breathing bad, polluted air, so that people in rich countries can consume, right? And I think that awareness is so important. I also consider myself as an eco-feminist, where it's a movement that believes that the oppression of women and the destruction of the planet is connected and can be traced to the exploitative patriarchy. And one of the ways we can sustain the planet and make so that it stays habitable for us is if we empower women, and again, that's where those things, overlap. I have a problem. I mean, I think sometimes we compartmentalize issues, but they're more connected, whether it's race, gender, faith, earth, we're all one. And so I think that is what I would like to see on campus and would like to work towards that.
I really appreciate your work on campus, especially like the fact that you want to bring it out to other campuses. I think that's very important because I feel like, so I'm transferring next semester, right? And like, I'm really going to miss Skyline and like the community and what we have. So Dr. Erpelo, I promise I will bring that legacy in other universities. And I'm sure other students will too, considering how inspiring you all are. I do want to open it up to the audience for a Q&A. If some of you have questions, please feel free to put it in the chat and we will read it out. Anthony, yes, you have 2 questions.
Oh, can I just say it out loud?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned how can we should be able to fight for gender equality. So how can Skyline College as a community take the first steps to really set that precedent into our school's culture? And my second question is, as a cisgender male, how can I be an ally for gender equality? Thank you.
Who's going to take it on first? Should I just start with
I was looking at you. I was looking at you, Rika. I'm like,
oh,
okay,
shoot. Okay. That's an excellent question. Was it Tony, right? I feel like there's a whole culture of misogyny and patriarchy that's very hard to put your finger on, right? So for example, there is a certain broad network amongst our male colleagues, which is reinforcing this, cultural, institutional, and a micro level aggressions on women, and that would lead to devaluation of like any feminine behavior, feminine kind of self-presentation interactions. So we are talking about this a whole cultural institutional package that would preserve and harbor that culture of patriarchy. How do we undermine it? I feel like first we have to destroy this culture of fear and the silence. And of course, it's easy to say, right? Because there is a case of gender aggression that somebody brings to me, for example, the first thing that woman says that I don't want to be retaliated. Without the exception, it's always the first thing. Don't share it with anybody, right? So I feel like in order to create and open up the space for collective discussion, I feel like we need a sisterhood network. And a brotherhood network is so easy to see. I don't know how to even do it. This thing. Sisterhood network does not have our like a very clear symbols, a network, this visibility. So that's something that we want to really build, because without collective struggle, nothing can be achieved, nothing can be changed, right? Second question is a very good question. I'm gonna give it to my sisters.
I'm actually going to add on to what you just said, Rika, too. But I think when we talk about breaking the silence, right, we have to name it for what it is, right? We have to talk. We have to call racism racism. We have to call white supremacy, right? We have to call misogyny out, right? Sexism. We have to name. I think for me personally, especially, and we're going to go back to it because it's for me, and I don't know for Rika and P, I'm sure Jaseryll as well, is that Atlanta is still weighing very heavy on my mind, and it has been ever since, it's been a week now, and I've already been in so many talks. I have cried, I have just wanted to scream, and I've written and I've done all of these different things, and the one thing that doesn't get talked about is, I think we mentioned earlier, is the misogyny and white supremacy. And if you look back at the culture of imperialism, of militarization, domination, none of that gets talked about, right? And it's that whole thing, like, you're not supposed to talk about that stuff. You're supposed to kind of go with the flow. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to be the model minority, right? And I think we have to talk it. We have to name it. And when we start that with dialogue, and we start that by talking, I start by, like, I talk to my students about it. I go, let's talk about, like, what happened, and let's talk about what really happened. And I think those conversations have to start in the classroom, then move them out, into the bigger spaces. But having that safe space in the classroom for us to dialogue has been tremendous. And even spaces like this where we can have these meetings, that will work as well. And then I think once we start that, when you look at what happened in Atlanta, and you look at this white male who says that he had a bad day, that he has a sexual addiction, so it was basically the women's fault that they were women. It's like, no, we need to unpack that and go, that's not right. And we call it for what it is, and find a way to, and address it, and then work with it. And P.S., you're on mic. I know you want to say something. Go ahead.
I feel like I've got there's so much, right? I mean, again, what you've talked about already, naming it and not being silent, but it's just so, I mean, it's our upbringing, like, at least for me, it was my upbringing. I was told at a very young age to not talk about it. And so then you go into systems and structures and they tell you not to talk about it. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. And it's like, it's such a huge thing to break. I don't, I mean, I don't know. It's everywhere. It's around the world. It might, there are very few societies that are matriarchal, but like, it's around the world. And I just feel like it's so huge about there are small steps we can take, right? Like, we can support each other. We can be there for each other. If there's something that I'm not comfortable talking, and I can be like, hey, you guys are in this place, can you support me when I talk about this? Like, kind of bolstering that support. That's what I'm saying about women. But also, I think that you know, women and men, we share the world, right? And I think compassionate men, kind men are also something that we need. You know, I mean, I always say that it's not just that a mother should be making the daughter strong and, you know, teaching the daughter to, you know, own the voice, but also, you know, raising the son to be just, you know, kinder, softer, respectful of them, their mothers and your sisters and all the women that they come across, right? And so I think what I would suggest for, you know, the men that who want to support is that too, right? If you know that you are in a group or a space where there are women who are struggling or going through, support them. Give, if there's talking, amplify their voices. You know, I don't know if a woman is not there and the men are talking about women in a degrading way, or you're engaging in activity that could be objectifying women, you know, it starts that way too. It's not like, well, what happens in a relationship with a woman. It's like even when the woman is not there, how is a woman perceived, right? And I think, you know, having those conversations with other men, even if the women are not there, that would be my recommendation to our, you know, male allies, or whatever the right word is.
And I think what Pia was saying made me think of something. Is right when we talk about like how we were raised to not cause a fuss, to not, you know, raise anybody's attention, and you know, we talk about like traditionally. I mean, before the Spanish showed up, the Filipinos was the Philippines was a matriarchal society, right? And so it was the imposition of, you know, Spanish colonialism that, you know, imposed patriarchy on the Philippines. But was thinking about it now, was that the person who told me not to say anything was my father. You know, that you don't talk about this. So it's again, and so the conversations need to start happening at home. You know, with our fathers, with our brothers, with our cousins, with our sons, with our nephews, right? And the other term that kind of came to mind is this, you know, this idea of toxic masculinity. And if men want to cisgendered men want to help, I think they also need to look into themselves too. What is going on with them and the way that they view masculinity and femininity, and kind of work from the inside out, because I think all of us are doing that. It's like, I always hear about, like, you know, like, well, especially with women, like we're trying to work on ourselves. Kind of what Pia was saying is like, you know, why are women taught to be a certain way? But it's like, you know, you have to act this way. You know, like one thing that tells me, you know, why are there all these posts about, you know, women have to be a certain way so that they're not sexually assaulted, they're not raped? Well, why don't you just teach men not to rape? You know, that's the other thing too. So I think there needs to be a change in like the mind shift, you know, and then trying to find that common ground so that you can become allies, so that we're not like this and we're more like this, right? Okay.
Thank you for that powerful discussion. I really learned a lot, and I do want to say thank you to Anthony for that amazing question. The fact that you even brought it up and is willing to hear us out is really a good step already. So thank you for that. Sadly, we are closing till the end now, so I do want to take a little picture with everyone before we head out. So Alvin, I think Alvin will take the picture.
Yep.
So
that
Alvin,
is me.
please.
Oh.
Mhm.
Hello, and if this is not your first time with me, of course, I'm a two-picture type of person. So if you would like, please open up and please take a picture with us. Thank you. Y'all three are amazing. Jazz, you did a great job hosting, even though you were like freaking out, you killed it, right? And okay, we are getting our pictures. Let me get set up real quick. Don't worry, don't worry. Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. All right, you can change or shift. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm on a balance board. Okay, 3, 2, 1. You had it, Rika. You had it. You got it. Yeah. Back to you, Jazz.
Yeah, so thank you for the picture, Alvin. I do want to thank everyone for coming, and I hope you all learned a lot from this. I do want to invite you all to the third day of the Women's Speaker Series. Tomorrow we'll have Dr. Moreno, Andrea Visner, and Michelle Bautista. So, same time, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. But last but not least, I do want to thank you to the panelists today. I feel very inspired, and I'm really honored to be here with all of you. Thanks.